Dr. Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan's birth anniversary is celebrated as Teachers' Day in India. He was born on 5th September 1888 in Thiruttani, Tamil Nadu. He earned his master's degree in philosophy and started his career in philosophy, rose to become the Vice Chancellor of Andhra University and succeeded Pandit Madan Mohan Malviya as the Vice Chancellor of Banaras Hindu University. Dr. Radhakrishnan was knighted by the British and honored by the Oxford University. He served as the first Vice President of India and as the second President of our country. Nominated 16 times for Nobel Prize in Literature and 11 times for the Nobel Peace Prize. A great philosopher, a popular mentor, an erudite scholar who had the distinct honor to be the first Indian to hold a professorial chair at the University of Oxford. Team Pavitra salutes Bharat Ratna Dr. Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan. Mahan Darshanik, Shikshavid, Bharat Ratna डॉक्टर सर्वपल्ली राधाकृष्णन को टीम पवित्रा अपने श्रद्धा सुमन अर्पित करती है और कोटि कोटि नमन उन शिक्षकों को जिन्होंने हमारा जीवन अपने अथक प्रयास से सजाया और संवारा है। आप सभी को शिक्षक दिवस की हार्दिक शुभकामनाएं। A very happy Teachers' Day to all our participants, to all the viewers, and a very warm welcome from Team Pavitra. Whenever I'm on this platform, it gives me a very auspicious feeling, the very name Pavitra. And today is a very special day, not only because it's Teachers' Day, but I'm here in conversation with a young, brilliant mind. He's an inspirational communicator, a visionary thinker, has been a great achiever, a motivational speaker, has in-depth knowledge of the scriptures, is known for his stories from the scriptures, his interactions with young minds, and has had a very enriching life till date. All of this at such a young age. To give you a formal introduction of the person I'm talking about, he's a graduate in electrical engineering from National Institute of Technology, Kurukshetra. He did his master's from Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, excelled as a student, won the Best Students Award there, joined a multinational company, filed for his patent there, and was awarded the Innovator of the Year award. Hailing from UP, it comes as a no surprise for me when I read that he appeared from the Indian Engineering Service exam conducted by UPSC and secured the mighty All India rank 4th. Gradually, we see him giving up all this and shifting to a monastic life where he devoted himself to enrich his real inner self by understanding the Oriental philosophical texts and assimilating from the example of his guides and mentors. After being a practitioner of meditation and disseminator of spiritual knowledge for over a decade, he now is back with us, sharing his valuable insights, giving lectures, holding seminars, interacting with young minds. He's a very popular motivational speaker, has spoken on the TEDx platform. Avatar Lila, I welcome you to Pavitra, and I'm very eagerly looking forward to hearing from you. Uh, Tell me, if I were to ask you a very simple question, almost childlike, who's been your favorite teacher and why?
Thank you, Shubha ji. Thank you, Pavitra platform, for bringing me over here on this very, very important occasion of Teachers' Day. Uh, I believe, apart from my parents, my longest interaction till I came to the world of corporals and later on became a monk was from my teachers. And there are a lot of inspirational teachers. It's always a very tough question to pinpoint the one, the best, because everybody had their unique flavors to bring to surface and teach us so many valuable things. But if you were to ask me pinpoint one, then I remember one of our professors when I was studying at the Indian Institute of Science, and his name was Professor. His name is Professor Viram Narayanan. VR used to call him, and he was such an amazing genius of his particular field. And not just he was so competent, but his overall disposition was so welcoming and approachable, and he wanted to create more experts like him. He wanted to share the knowledge that he was carrying with him, and did everything best possible to create, to make learning a very, very sweet and a fun-filled and a deep, insightful exercise. I would say that in my own personal opinion, in my own personal experience, this one professor always stands out very, very strongly because of what he stood for. And I really, he taught us that. He said, you are here at this institute not to learn a subject, but you are here at this institute to learn the process of learning. Because by the time you go out in the world, we want to prepare you, equip you, that wherever you go, you continue to learn, you continue to improvise, you continue to become better as every day progresses and proceeds. So yes, V. Ram Narayanan had been my personal favorite teacher for that part. And my due respects to every single other teacher who made their contribution in making me whatever I am today now. And any faults or any discrepancies is just my onus and responsibility. They did their part the best they could. But I feel just this particular one professor really laid a very deep impact on me. I'm sure, Shubhaji, you have been in the education field also. I mean, not just learning, teaching, but even looking, even teaching children and even interacting with many other teachers. If I were to ask you this question, what would be your answer? Who is the best teacher you admire and you remember in your life?
Avatar, when Team Pavitra asked me to have this conversation with you, I grabbed the opportunity because I thought that when I'll be speaking with you, I'll be offering my obeisances to my ancestors who've all been teachers. And in a way, I would say for me, life has been the best teacher. And when I say life, I include my school, the Daily College Indore, with its wonderful ethos, which shaped our minds with the beauty of nature all around us. The amazing faculty, and like you, it's very difficult for me to name one person, but the entire faculty was outstanding. My peer group there, my batchmates, they all taught me in so many ways. When I went ahead to do my master's, I was a tad disappointed because I was unable to move out of Indore. My father felt that I should stay on and complete my studies at the university there. But I must say, I was under the tutelage of one of the best literature professors I've ever met in my travels throughout the country, and I was blessed. Later on, all my friends at ISKCON, my Diksha Guru, later on Radhanath Swami Maharaj, they've all, in a way influenced me. My mother was a great teacher in many ways. She did her master's way back in 1940s when girls and ladies were not going to colleges in large numbers. And she did her master's in English literature. And I saw her reading all kinds of authors, my grandparents. So, what do I say? It's a complete package. And this life has really taught me so much. It comprises of all this. And Avtar, I was reading a research paper recently, and they said that whenever we ask people about their favorite teacher, they talk about the human values they imbibe from them, just as you did, just as I do. And rarely do we come across an answer where the student says, it's because of his brilliance at his subject. So, when we are talking about balancing tradition and innovation, which is a challenge for teachers in 2020, what are we talking about? Are we talking about human values, the traditional values which have inspired generations? Are we talking about innovating with them, or is it something else?
Yeah, I should say, balancing tradition and innovation, in my perspective, is like there are some. It's always it's like striking a balance between principles and details. Like principles of education, principles of learning are perennial. If you go and ask any student, any teacher, hard work, perseverance, honesty, loyalty, submission, respect, all these aspects are cardinal principles of any kind of learning, no matter where it happens, when it happens, how remotely, how recently. But at the same time, we need to keep adapting with the changing times. Uh, I like to really reminisce of this analogy was once given by my teacher, spiritual teacher. He said, it's like somebody is accustomed to bathing in a holy river, and he has fixed a spot where he's bathing on a holy river on an everyday basis. But if the a period of time, if the river shifts its course, and if this person still stands in the same place where he used to stand earlier, he can't expect to take bath in the river. He has to move where the river has moved. Now, at the same time, what he does with the river still remains the same. He still takes part in the river, cleanses himself, whatever he does, whatever worship he does. Similarly, in the field of education, the uh, the kind of volatile environment we're all living in, the kind of speed to which our youngsters and the current teenagers are exposed to, we have absolutely no experience of it, seeing that kind of speed at that age. Now, like for example, most of the youngsters who are in colleges these days are younger than internet. When we were growing up in our teenage years, the situation was very different. Probably just TV was a distraction, but now we have so many other social media interactions. Things have changed a lot. So now, if the same kind of value system have to be, imbibed, if learning has to become a fun-filled experience, if the kids needs to understand the subtler human values, we need to innovate. Now it has to be innovated in such a way that we don't lose the original stuff. We actually retain the originality, the original principles which needs to be communicated, but also design innovative ways, means of communicating those ideas in a relevant manner that they can understand. Right? Like for example, in your textbook, you might read an analogy which speaks about a post box. Now, if you tell a young child about a post box, he doesn't even know what a post box is because it just doesn't exist for them anymore. So we have to innovate, we have to change the way we communicate, how we make people understand. But the content of it, yeah, that is something which has to be kept intact. And I believe even in my interactions with people from the corporate world and people from the professional world, the one thing that is standing out more than ever before, which actually is extremely crucial in terms of how people perform, what are the kind of experience they get in terms of, in the professional world, is this aspect of emotional question, this aspect of human values, behaviors, ability to manage your emotions, ability to motivate yourself, ability to strike relationship with other people in that realm. So I believe as the responsibility of the teachers as move forward, we need to balance also between what we teach, how we teach, and also give that final aspect of why we need to learn all these things and how does it apply in practical lives. What is the value system we need to learn on which the entire gamut of learning and understanding actually rests. So balancing tradition and innovation, which is a constant fine balance. It's a constant challenge for the teachers, for any kind of innovators, for leaders, for inspirers, for parents, for anyone in the field of growth. Anyone who is in the field of growth has to constantly balance these two aspects of traditional values and innovation. And innovation keeps you relevant, and tradition gives you substance. So when you stick to traditional values, that actually gives you deep substance, which actually transforms people's heart. And when we are innovative, we actually remain relevant to the people and make them understand that what we are sharing is, is something extremely relevant, practical, and useful for people. So this is what I understand by tradition and innovation when it comes to education.
So when we are talking about shaping this process of learning of human values, are we going to take help of stories from our scriptures or tell them about lives of great men, great saints? I know, it's your forte, the scriptural studies. I want you to talk about it and how those inspiring stories could help us mold young minds. So,
Actually, our wisdom literatures, our histories, not just Vedic history, but even the world history has umpteen examples of people who have lived by values and could be a source of inspiration for people. And for me personally, when I interact with teenagers, it's not just, I just see what actually helps the message get across. If people are, what are they tuned into? Because values can be found everywhere in scriptures, in the background, sometimes even in a modern scenario, modern context, in a world context, or the recent struggles of people can also be extremely inspirational to people. So yes, Vedic wisdom has a lot of stories of inspiration and for the relationship between the spiritual teacher and the guru and things like that. For that matter, if you look at the most recent contemporary Vedic history, which is Mahabharata, if you actually look at Mahabharata couldn't have happened if Pandavas and Kauravas, they were trained by these illustrious guru called Dronacharya. And it's very profound that even now, even now when people want to name their institutes or this or that, they call it the Drona Institute, the Dronacharya Institute.
Yes.
Because that gentleman, he has that knack of balancing tradition and innovation. It was pretty profound. He gave them the values by which they should fight. At the same time, he gave them the most cutting edge. Like, for example, just the way he makes his entry and introduces himself to the boys. And it's a very classic how teachers actually become endearing to children or to their students, or how they find that space in the students' hearts that the students want to learn from them all the while. When Dronacharya comes in, the boys are besieged with the problem that their ball has fallen into a well. The ball has fallen into a well, and they want to, want some help to bring out that ball. And Dronacharya understands exactly what they need. He comes up, uses his skill to address their issue, and he wins over their trust, wins over their faith that here is a gentleman who can actually give us profound knowledge for which we are, hankering or destined to be. So Dronacharya actually dealt with what they were struggling with, and then these people opened up their hearts to actually learn this knowledge, learn the martial skills from Dronacharya. Now, if you look at the modern context also, teachers, teachers is not just about people who just teach in the school, which is a very crucial responsibility also. But anyone who is in the position of influence over children or kids or youngsters is like a teacher, is like a guru. And therefore, for them, it is very, very important that we actually connect with their life issues. We help them deal with what they are dealing with. We actually get into that space where we are there for them, help them in their individual struggles and challenges and problems. That's what makes our message, that's what makes us, that's what makes a teacher relevant to this. And that's the time they're actually willing to open up their hearts to learn. And then when the hearts are open from both ends, that's the time learning actually becomes an experience of fun. Otherwise, it becomes a mechanical chore. You get information, but you don't feel transformation. So from the Vedic history, if you see even examples of Lord Ramachandra, Lord Sri Krishna, they both also exemplified by their examples of the importance of accepting a teacher. Lord Ramachandra accepted Vishwamitra as his teacher, martial arts. He learned so many weapons and things like that. And Lord Sri Krishna accepted Sandipani Muni as his teacher. So, so profound example to actually show the importance of. Now, somebody might question and try to understand why is it that even the gods have to accept someone as a spiritual, as a teacher or something like that. But that's the principle that is being taught. That is the principle that has been taught, that yes, we can learn skills on our own probably, and especially in this day and age of social media and so much information on the internet and social media platforms. It will not be difficult to learn a skill on your own without the help of a physical teacher. But what we fail to learn is the mindset, is the attitude which a teacher imparts by his own personal example. The character is what goes missing. We learn the skills, but not the character, which a child actually learns from the example of his teachers or by their personal interaction. And this is what actually helps them use their skills in a constructive manner and not a destructive manner. They become an asset to society and not a liability to society. They become proud of themselves and not guilty or regretful of what they have done with their own lives. So when we have this personal interaction of teachers, and this is what Vedic system was about, and where the teacher and the student would spend quality time with each other, and that's the place where the child will actually learn a lot of character-based, because character you can't teach through textbooks so easily. It is best learned and imbibed by personal experience and examples of people who are living by those values. That's where the child actually imbibes them very deeply. So yes, for me, if you talk about the Vedic history, the most profound example of a teacher actually comes as Dronacharya. Now later on, Arjuna, when he was in the battlefield of Kurukshetra fighting this war, and he's again beside himself. What did he lose? If you look at Arjuna, what did he lose? He did not like lost his archery skills. He did not lost his weapons. It was all there with him. What he lost was the will to fight. What he lost was the emotional balance. What he lost was the feeling of a sense of purpose. And that's where Sri Krishna came into picture and he spoke the Gita. And in the Gita, he did not speak even a single verse or a word speaking about how he should fight. But his whole sermon, but his whole conversation was all about why should Arjuna fight and in what state of consciousness, what should be his motivation in order to fight that war. And this is so profound because many times when your subjects, when your students actually are very well equipped and very well skilled and very capable, they may not need your help in terms of determining how things needs to be done, what needs to be done. Yes, to a kindergarten student, you may have to teach what needs to be done, how it needs to be done. But someone who's grown up, we need to keep readjusting, keep refining, keep realigning to our sense of purpose. And I think if you look at the world today, and that behooves a great sense of responsibility for teachers from all spectrums of life, is to remind people of their sense of purpose. Because if we lose that sense of purpose, then in spite of the skills we have, like Arjuna had, we start losing hope, we start losing confidence, and then you see whatever is happening in the world today. So I would say that from the Vedic history, we can learn and expand the purview of the role a teacher can actually play in the lives of their subjects. It's not just limited to a classroom, it's not just limited to a school, but it's a lifelong relationship where you first teach them what needs to be done, how it needs to be done. But over a period of time, you also help them, give them an extended helping hand to readjust their sense of purpose when they feel lost, when they feel like there is nothing in this world, or I'm useless, I'm worthless, or this or that, and there are people who can come forward and help them realign their sense of purpose. So I think this is a very crucial aspect of, in terms of the roles and responsibilities of a teacher, which we can learn from the Vedic examples in times.
Yes, so what I understand is this, that teaching should not, the process of teaching should not be about simply dissemination of information. It has to be something more, much more. I think the popular phrase inner engineering encompasses lots of it. And knowledge and information, Shikshak and Guru. Would you like to differentiate between these? I perceive them as different from each other.
Thank you for asking that question. Actually, it's a very, if you look at any kind of information, is just knowing the things of how it needs to be done on the steps and the procedures. Like, for example, take an example of learning to cook. Now, cooking, just like I tell you a personal example. When I started learning to cook, it was the time when I was graduating out of my college, and we had to live outside for job and all those stuff. So I spent 14 days with my mother learning to cook, and she was teaching me how to cook, and I would stand with pen and paper taking down all the notes. So all that note taking was just information. So my mom will tell, okay, you cut this vegetable, put this masala, this and this, that. But the real experience of what cooking actually meant, or what actually is, happened when you personally start cooking. So information is a one-way process where the teacher gives you information, but when you contemplate on the information that is given to you, when you mull over the information that is given to you, and then you pick up certain aspects of that information, start applying it in your own personal life, making it your own, you start understanding from different angles of vision. Try to see how it connects to me, how does it apply to me. You start practicing it. Then that information actually creates transformation. That transformation leads to sense of conviction. And this conviction is what transforms information to knowledge, which becomes an active repository. Information is a neutral repository, right? Like, like our cloud banks and our online repositories have so much information we can't even imagine. It's all information. How do you make it useful is you pick it up, you start practicing a nugget here and there, and then that information leads to transformation, you experience some transformation, then you become convinced, and then it becomes a knowledge which is active, which is constantly growing, which is shareable, which is, able to create the transformation. And the person who only limits you to give you information or a certain level of skill set to become a shikshak, which is also a very crucial role. Nothing to, no, it's not in a demeaning way. It has that role. But the person who helps you get transformed by that information, which helps you make a better version of you, then that person actually becomes, in the Vedic parlance, as a guru, or someone who actually shows not just how things needs to be done, what needs to be done, but also gives a sense of purpose, why it needs to be done the way it needs to be done. And that is what actually, you know, uh, defines guru, defines a person who can actually take the role and responsibility.
And so we come to, I think, a very important point in all this entire journey of learning, teaching, and learning. And it is this, that once we are training teachers, we train them not only to pass on information, but equip them with scriptural stories, uh, a little bit of philosophy, maybe some breathing techniques, so that the children learn to be focused and generally create an ethos in school which takes them away from the cacophony of this modern world. It could be done by inculcating in them the love for nature, the love for all living creatures around them, and telling them this, that you are not the only ones who inhabit this world. There are other creatures also. So, do you think that this value based education, where we are going to innovate, should become an important tool in developing an empathy towards all living creatures? Uh, should it be also a tool to preserve and conserve this planet, which I believe is gradually facing lot many dangers from all sides, and we are facing one of those right now. So, what do you think about it? Do our scriptural studies uh, promote this kind of love for nature, for all living creatures around us?
Yeah, I believe that that's has been repeated in various traditions of ancient knowledge, whether it is Buddhism, whether it is the Vedic knowledge, or whether it is any of the Western religions also. It has been a perennial theme of being respectful, being kind, being generous, being gentle, being empathic with the person, with the around the surrounding and the environment around us. Now, what is important is in our mode of learning, because the children whom we are teaching or the youngsters whom we are sharing knowledge are also probably equally well informed like us at certain times. So what becomes important is that our modes of learning or modes of experiencing is not neutral or worse dead, but they are very experiential in nature. We have to make the learning process a very active kind of engagement for people to understand the value and the importance of it. And for that matter, like for example, if you talk about emotional intelligence, so one of the emotional question, as you mentioned very rightly, one of the very crucial aspects of that emotional question is empathy. Empathy about the environment, empathy about the people around us, empathy towards our own bodies, empathy towards our surroundings, relationships and friendships and everything else. And that kind of responsibility, sense of responsibility towards our own planet and for the fellow being who is next to us is a cardinal principle of how a human being is supposed to act and behave in the world. So Vedic stories have empty number of examples of how the teachers have tried to give that sort of value system, that respect for nature, that respect. And for that, this is one of the reasons why the most of the gurukuls traditionally would be set up in a natural setting. Dronacharya, when he wanted to teach the Pandavas and the Kauravas, he said, I'm not going to teach them in a palace. I'm going to take them out and put them in a natural surrounding, and that's where we are going to learn. For several reasons. One is to be away from the comfort dwelling of their palace, because Vidya and Sukha don't go parallelly together. They generally are on opposite ends. And another reason was to actually make them understand the conscious importance of dependence on nature, how we are not just independent people in this on this planet. We are interdependent species, just like other species depend on us. We also depend upon other species. We depend upon so many things in order to survive, in order to live properly. I think that kind of cognizance, that kind of awareness is crucial so that our children and youngsters grow up to be responsible adults who take responsibility for their surroundings, who take responsibility for themselves, who take responsibility for people around them. And I think it starts with, again, the emotional growth, emotional nurturing of their aspect. And I think this particular aspect in the current day and age, they learn best when they see the people around them who are elder to them. They are demonstrating those qualities of empathy. Yes, we should definitely try in our classrooms to show and speak about moral values. We speak about beautiful historical stories which are highly inspirational. But at the same time, outside the class, when the teachers demonstrate, when the parents demonstrate these qualities of empathy, how they're caring towards each other, how they're kind towards each other, how they're non-judgmental, non-political, that's where children actually learn. That's where they see its relevance. Otherwise, the way we are wired, we generally relegate all those descriptions to some historical date, and we are not able to make a justifiable understanding of it, relevance of it in our present day life, in our current situation. When we see people right around us who are just elder to us, few years elder to us, demonstrating those qualities, I feel that is a big impactful learning experience for us, and that reinforces what they've heard in the past. What happens to them at that time is like they understand, oh, this is what people behave like 5,000 years back, or thousands of years back, or millions of years back, and this is how people are behaving now. That means the values are perennial. I can also apply it in my life today and my life to come for years later. And that's where the values start getting imbibed in that. It's like I can give a big sermon on how environment is important and this and that, and then do something extremely detrimental to environment. And if a child sees both of those things, he's not going to pick up what I've actually told him. It also has to be demonstrated by my own example that I value what I'm speaking about. So I believe a combination of many aspects have to go in order, especially as we are progressing, especially as we are moving ahead. And parents also have to be open to feedbacks and suggestions. And sometimes children are the best people to pinpoint something is going haywire, something you're not meeting. Even if you're not walking your talk, children will be the first person to point out, hey dad, hey mom, this is not what we have been speaking about. And I believe that's also a very good check and correcting balance in our system. And this is where, when children see that kind of coherence in all these aspects, that's the place I think the impact actually happens, I believe. I would love to hear your opinion on that. Definitely, you have been in the field of education and dealing with youngsters, dealing with their tough problems. I'm sure it would have been a big learning experience for you as well. And you have better insights into understanding what really makes these moral values, these value-based things stick in the young brains. Me personally, I feel this coherence between example and practice, and these historical examples and the current examples, when we see that coherence, that's where the value system actually becomes ingrained in. But I would love to hear from you as well. What is your rich experience that speaks about it?
Actually, you said it, walk the talk. We have to lead by example. And if I look back to the 1970s and 80s, when I was in school, and I compare myself with children today, I feel that in many ways they are far ahead. They are techno savvy, they are sharp, and life has been more challenging for them. I couldn't have imagined returning home from school and not finding my mother there. She was there waiting for us with hot milk, evening snacks. She would pick up our bag, take us to our room, ask us about the day that we spent in school. And then, we would be comfortable talking to her, talking to our siblings. Avatar, children go back to empty homes and they have the computer, the Google, as their sibling or as their parent or as their go to person. What we have done for them is, it is as if, I think I'll give you the analogy of a plate full of pizzas and all delicacies. We've placed it in front of them, and now we are saying, don't eat. It's a difficult world. It's a challenging world we have created for them. So the onus is on us to reshape it, and reshape it by, I think, educating them in the right way. And education is a very important tool. And that's why I think you are talking about balancing tradition and innovation. When I look at nature, I think the example of a bird is the best example to teach parents how to deal with their children. A bird flies to distances, catches a worm, and feeds her little ones. Then she teaches them to catch their worm. She teaches them to fly and then pecks them hard so that they just leave the nest and fly away. Take their own flight, soar high in the sky, whereas we are too protective. And so when I was teaching, I had this experience when teenagers would come to me and share with me their emotional roller coaster, share with me issues about relationships as they unfold at home between their parents, share with me the relationships their elder siblings have developed with children of the same sex or the opposite sex. And so it used to be quite a revelation for me. And I learned so much. I learned the value of empathy. I learned the value of sensitivity. I learned the values of confidence building. And I also learned that as teachers, we don't have to be just tools passing information. We have to be their support in whatever they do, as long as they are with us. And try and be a bridge between the parent, the child, the school. So the role of a teacher has changed diametrically. It's a paradigm shift. And many would disagree with me by saying, no, you are overstepping, but I hold my ground on this. And I feel that I should be a great mom at home and in school. And I think if I've been a good student all through my life, I'll be a good teacher as well. Teacher in the technical term, professionally speaking, but it goes beyond the profession. That's been my takeaway as a teacher. And I believe that from classes KG to 8, we have a decade with us to mold our children. And then comes in the class 9, 10, 11, 12 phase of board exams. But by then you have shaped your clay. और मुझे तो वो कबीर का दोहा याद आ जाता है अवतार, गुरु कुम्हार शिष्य कुंभ है, गड़ी गड़ी काढ़े खोट, भीतर हाथ सहार दे, बाहर बाहे चोट. So Guru to Kumhar hai, potter, and the clay, and he molds it. It's all with us, the tool within us that you're talking about us, and empowering ourselves with whatever. And at the moment, I think you are my teacher, teaching me the importance of scriptural examples, philosophical uh, principles, and there's so much more to it. And I think I lack a lot. So I have a long way to go still. And let me see, where do I go from here? But tell me one thing, when you've been speaking to young adults, any experience with them which has touched you much more than what you've already learned? And how have they influenced you?
Yeah, that's a good question. Actually, interacting with young adults, one thing I realized is everyone is unique. Absolutely, everyone is unique. From an external perspective, you might see that the problems are repetitive in nature when young adults, young teenagers come to us and explain their issues and problems. We might see that there's a repetitive nature, but underlying even external similarities of the problems, underlying is a very unique perception, a unique being, a unique person, a unique situation, experiences, challenges, struggles, and weakness. And my feeling is when you interact with these young teenagers very closely, you actually realize that here is a very sincere person who is struggling to be a better version of himself or herself, but they just doesn't seem to know the way out. And so people willingly wants to fall into addictions or willingly wants to fall into self-harming behaviors, but at times there's no guidance available, or there's wrong guidance available, or they just don't know where to walk, where to move on. So I feel what my interaction with teenagers have taught me that it's the responsibility of the elders of this particular generation to have more empathy, more broad-mindedness, to have more willingness to listen to people instead of judging them, instead of telling them what they are doing wrong, instead of finding out what they're doing wrong. Probably we start learning to pinpoint what they're doing right, what their potential of, not see them as problem, but see them as a potential. So I would say that uh, my interaction with teenagers have taught me personally that be non-judgmental, because everyone is fighting their own battles. Everyone out there is fighting their own battles. Don't judge anyone, and always give a patient ear to everyone and anyone who comes to you, opens their hearts to you, because beneath the external facade of their whether it is cosmetics or whether it is rebellion, lies a very sincere, tender heart, which is sometimes crying for inspiration, crying for direction, whining for direction. So if we learn to listen to these kids in a more sensitive manner, I believe, and this is very crucial as we are moving forward in the 21st century, and the planet is becoming more and more socially connected, at the same time extremely lonely. We have never been as lonely as we are right now in the world today. We are leading a very lonely life, although we have so much social connectivity, and we are missing some very crucial, viable social connections, which is having a tremendous impact on the quality of our lives as well. So in that situation, if people come across someone who can hear them out without judging them, without questioning them, and just be there as a friend, as a guide, as a help, as a philosopher, I believe this is what teenagers have taught me to be. I've learned every single one who interacts. I have the fortune of interacting with them. I don't see them as a problem. I see them as a potential. I see them as a person who is just like an unpolished diamond. Here is a person who just needs to be handled carefully, guided carefully, and they have their own journeys, own miracles, own stars to reach, and everybody can be a brilliant, brilliant human being and an asset to this world. So I think this is what I've learned by interacting with the youngsters, and I've been very fortunate. I would consider it to be. Uh,
So we carry a wealth of experience in our while we interact with young minds. And
yes.
Avatar, there's a very interesting question for you. Uh, Somebody wants to know, as a student of science, how could you align yourself with what is popularly known as mythology? How does a logical mind come to terms with this phrase, with this word mythology? I somehow detest it, but it's very popularly used and very often used. So how did you?
Actually, my father used to always say this statement when we were growing up kids. He said, "If something doesn't make sense to you, doesn't mean it's nonsense." Because
Yes.
you need to qualify yourself to understand the subject matter at hand. And for that matter, if you look at, I looked at things very objectively because I tend to be a seeker. I'm not saying that I'm still a student of life, I would say. And life is a perennial teacher, as you said. And our teachers always taught us that knowledge, the process of learning, is similar. You start with faith, you start learning it, then you experience the transformation, and every stream of knowledge has its own nuances, has its own rules, has its own ways of administering, you know, education and knowledge. Some similarities, but a lot of uniqueness as well. The way I learned physics and the way I learned cooking are going to be two different experiences altogether. In physics, probably I need to use my analytical abilities more, and in cooking, probably I need to use my central faculties more in order to learn that science. So both, I can't compare both these arenas of knowledge, but if I want to understand that particular knowledge, I need to actually accept the nuances, accept the methodologies of that particular stream, and always be very open-minded and and question everything which you're not able to understand until you find the answer. So even in terms of when I picked up spirituality, it was not for a religious purpose, but it was more from a sense of curiosity. Okay, here is this knowledge which is existing, as it is claimed for more than thousands of years. If it has been existing for thousands of years, there must be some value to it. Otherwise, how could it survive such a long passage of time and still leave people so deeply impacted? And I began my journey thinking and looking at spiritual text and spiritual philosophy from that perspective, not necessarily from a religious angle, but what is it talking about? What is it teaching us about life? And with an open mindset, with the willingness to learn, not willingness to, I always approach knowledge with a willingness to learn and understand it and not disprove it. Because if I approach knowledge with the mindset of disproving it, I already have a mindset. I'm probably just wasting my time even approaching that particular field of knowledge. But I'm there to learn, to see what it can actually, what I can imbibe from it. Then in that open state of mind, at the same time, not being blind followers, not having blind faith, but questioning everything on a, what do you say, on a rational basis. That's where spiritual knowledge actually started. And one of my teachers actually said that sometimes it is important to understand how far common sense can go. And if you want to then learn things beyond your common sense, then you have to use your uncommon sense and experience knowledge at a totally different level, right? So knowledge can be experienced at different levels. You look at a small child, he picks up anything and puts it in his mouth. That's his level of experience. That's his level of awareness. Whatever is out there, it has to be put on in my mouth. And that's how he learns. But if you go a PhD scholar, that's not how he is learning. He's contemplating, meditating, imagining. And for a person outside, he may be just sitting idle, but he might be actually envisaging a solution or a theory or something very noble. His level of experience and the platform of gathering knowledge is totally different. So I feel as the field of knowledge starts becoming, we can't even learn ABCD without a teacher's help, isn't it? None of us could learn ABCD even without the help of teacher or just the basic alphabets of a language. So what to speak of an extremely technical, complex, ancient science and knowledge, I felt if that has to be given due respect, we need to also approach the right teachers. Just like I can't learn quantum physics by approaching a teacher of English literature. Yes, English literature professor can also teach me Shakespearean's work and Tolstoy's work and everything else. That's his field of expertise. But if I want to learn quantum physics, I need to go to a person who has worked on quantum physics for 20 years. Yes, someone who knows English can still read the text, but reading the text doesn't make you a quantum physicist. If I want to become a quantum physicist, I need to approach someone who has practiced quantum physicist for several decades. Similarly, if I have to learn spiritual knowledge, I need to go to someone who has practiced that spiritual knowledge for a considerably long period of time, then expect to learn. And how much time it takes to get a PhD in quantum physics? 27 years, 28 years, sometimes 30 years, isn't it? And this is something which is, of this world and, something which you can perceive. What we speak of spiritual knowledge, which is working on a different dimension, we need to give time, we need the right people, and we need the perseverance to apply this knowledge in our own personal lives. And not having blind faith, but being openly curious. And then I found over a period of time that it does make sense. It actually answers a lot of deep questions about life, which otherwise is not possible to understand in a textbook setting. I think for me, it was not just ancient stories, but I just read it in a history book. Okay, fine. This is the history of this planet. My course curriculum is teaching me history of last 100 years, 500 years, 700 years, 900 years. And here is a book which is talking about history which is thousands of years old. So why should I reject it? If I reject that, I should also reject someone who is telling me about yesterday or the 100 years back, because the nuances are the same. But then there are various ways of validating the knowledge. So for example, so for me, I just approached both of them with the same tools of knowledge. I didn't see religion and science as two different things. It was not like one is faith and one is knowledge. I just saw them as two different traditions of knowledge, having a different perspective, a different objective of it, but the similar rules which define both these traditions of knowledge. And I'll conclude with this one nice statement which Saint Augustine once said. He said that you basically learn because of your love for the subject. If you love a subject, you will make extra effort to know about that particular subject properly. Similarly, so knowledge becomes a function of love. That's very profound, especially when otherwise, if you don't have love, you just do the bare minimum. But when you love a subject, you actually want to, go deeper into it, try to analyze it from different perspectives. So I find that philosophy, literally the word philosophy meant love for truth. So when people were searching for truth, they didn't just limit themselves to the knowledge of this world, but also explored territories which were unexplored by the frontiers or the knowledge of this world. So I believe that's what spiritual traditions all across the globe, all across the world offers us a glimpse into the unexplored territory, which is beyond our current level of advancement in the field of science. And I believe if you're a seeker, you won't you won't blind yourself to any source of knowledge which comes your way. You would like to explore, you would like to understand what it is. So I think that's what drove me being a student of science. We never accepted anything blindly, but we also understood that every field of knowledge has their own nuances, and you actually see the results coming, and that's what gives you faith. So, and I think I'm still exploring, I'm still learning, I'm still a work in progress, and I'm happy to learn from people who carry that kind of deeper wisdom, and that's always a beautiful experience, keeps your life fresh.
Very well said. And this eagerness, this keenness to learn, and I somehow perceive that information often becomes an iron curtain to let knowledge seep in. And then, as someone rightly said, you begin learning the moment you also think that I know nothing. And from that nothing, you create something. And that something then grows into a very mature, profound thought. But the willingness and the right intention has to be there. And you are exploring so much. Uh, I think each day for you brings a new experience, a new learning. What would be during this conversation, as we come to the end of it now, what would be your parting words for teachers and students?
I think the knowledge, as I have a spiritual teacher, they remain fresh and lively when both the parties practice the qualities of gratitude and humility. The student is grateful for receiving that knowledge. He is humble enough to receive the knowledge from the teacher. And the teachers are grateful towards the student that they are coming forward to learn this knowledge and continue the legacy on the tradition on. And this dynamic exchange of gratitude and humility is what keeps the traditions of knowledge alive and doesn't let it become stale, and make that whole experience of information, the whole experience of education a heart transforming or life transforming experience. We don't go, we should not be going to school or sending our kids to school just to have a nice career, because even if that happens, if we are grooming them up not with the right values or character, then life will hit them hard, which has to happen for everyone. Life hits you hard at some point of time, sometimes the most unexpected. And if we have not prepared our younger generation with that strong value system, then they crumble under the weight of the responsibilities. So I would feel a very crucial need for students, teachers, anyone in that position of influence is practice these qualities of being grateful, being humble, and be very accepting in nature. Sometimes you may come across the teachers who may not be very expert or who may not be very articulate, but we can be grateful, we can accept them for the fact that they're actually making an attempt to teach us by spending their time and energy to the best possible capacity. Sometimes you may come across a student who may not be very brilliant or bright or quick to grasp and learn. Have patience, be grateful, be accepting in nature. Okay, fine, here is a person who is struggling with his own personal set of problems. Let me go out and do some kindness to this soul. Who knows, this person may grow up to become somebody very profound and transform the hearts of hundreds and thousands of people in the future. So I would say in the current time, if there is something that we all can learn and imbibe, both as teachers and as students, these qualities of gratitude, humility, and acceptance, and that would make learning sought after and a beautiful experience for one and all.
So gratitude becomes one of the major ingredients in this process. And
Yes.
uh, just a last thought, how do you see yourself 10 years from now?
Still learning.
That's the hallmark of a great teacher. A great student is a great teacher. Thank you so much, Avatar. Uh, this conversation has taught me so much. And I look forward to interacting with you much more, learning from you. And Team Pavitra is indeed very grateful to you for sparing your valuable time for us. May the unexplored territories that you talk about be yours. May you understand them to the best of your ability. The contemplative nature that you talk about, the philosophy that you understand, and the role of a seeker that you have emphasized for yourself. May you get all that you desire for. These are my sincere prayers. Thank you
Thank you so
for
much.
being with
Thank you,
us.
Shubha. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Pavitra.
And to end this conversation, I can think of what Dr. Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan said. He said, "It is my hope, my honest desire that young people will go forward not as prisoners of the past, but as pilgrims of the future. May our journey ahead be a pilgrimage full of knowledge and not merely information, because knowledge empowers from within. Jnanameva Shakti." And from Team Pavitra, wishing you all, our viewers, a very happy Teachers' Day once again. May this life be a beautiful experience of learning and sharing and teaching. And may we all move ahead, move together on this beautiful journey. Thank you so much. And we'll see you again with another piece of conversation. Please do keep writing to us and informing us about what you would like to hear from this platform. Here's wishing you all the very best. Take care and have a great week ahead. Namaskar.